everyone, it's Steve Barrett here. I'm the editorial director of PR Week, here for another coffee break. Delighted to be with David Benigson, who's the founder and CEO of Signal AI. And David, you're talking to us from the Ukraine, I think. Yeah, so welcome to Coffee Break, and how are you doing?
Thank you, Steve. Lovely to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. So Signal AI, you founded the company yourself. Tell us about essentially what is Signal AI all about, and how's it grown over the years since you set it up?
Yeah, thank you. With pleasure. So I started the company Signal AI 8 years ago now. The business was founded in a garage, of course, where all good startups should begin, which was owned by my parents. Where else do startups begin? And I started the business with my co-founder, a data scientist called Dr. Miguel Martinez, who at the time was finishing his PhD in machine learning and artificial intelligence technology. And really, we founded the business under the premise of a number of global trends beginning to converge as we perceived it. The first was really the explosion, the volume and velocity of data available to organizations and business leaders, and yet the inability for business leaders to use all of that data to drive better decision making for their organization. The second challenge that we saw many large global organizations facing was the pressure and need to better understand the perception, the reputation, and the level of risk associated with their organization, and their inability to essentially have effective radar to get ahead of those issues faster and more efficiently. And the third trend we saw was the emergence of machine learning and AI as a set of technologies we believed would transform those challenges into an opportunity. And so our thesis was, if we could aggregate the broadest and most diverse data set that sat outside of an organization, be ambivalent about media type and language and modality and format, pull that all into a single platform. And then if we could apply machine learning and AI that could extract from that data kind of insight and reputational signals at scale, then we would enable our clients to be able to unlock the value from that deluge of information and ultimately arm them with those insights to make better decisions. So after 8 years, we don't fit in the garage anymore, unfortunately. We're about 180 people operating in 3 continents now, and we serve over 600 clients, from Google to Exxon to Barclays to Deloitte to members of the G7.
Were your clients, obviously they're in the communications departments, but are they in other parts of the organization as well? Tell us a bit about the roles you tending to deal with, and is it in-house mainly, or are you also dealing through agencies and through other vendors?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great question. I mean, we have a broad spectrum, certainly in terms of the coverage across different industries, and we service everything from consumer and retail through to financial services and professional services as well. Where we see an interesting expansion is in the use cases of this technology and data. So we started historically with a focus on reputation and essentially arming chief communications officers to become more data literate and to tool them up with the insights and data points and signals required to better set strategy, better get ahead of crises, better measure the impact of their work. But interestingly, we see this ongoing convergence between reputation, risk, and actually spotting opportunities, be that in ESG, be that as an investor, and this convergence, I think, is growing. I think the last year has only accelerated that further. The global health pandemic, issues around race and inequality, the climate crisis that we're grappling with, the rise of ESG. And so we see this fascinating convergence where the data that we provide can actually arm these organizations with insights to help them make better decisions at the confluence of those different use cases.
It's interesting you say that Google's one of your clients, because you would imagine they've sunk billions probably into AI themselves. So what's the sort of value that you're adding to an organization like Google? What's the sort of secret sauce, if you like?
Yeah, so the core competency and expertise of Signal AI is the fact that we scan the world's information. We do that in about 200 markets and over 100 languages. We analyze it on behalf of the user, checking for these hidden risks and these opportunities. And the change that we perceive can be seen as kind of moving from a passive system where you have to tell the tool the brand you're interested in, to an interactive system where the user and the tool are working with each other almost in symbiosis. So we believe we're building what we describe as the kind of first decision augmentation solution, which is able to access the world's news and broadcast, blogosphere, social media data, regulatory information. And then by applying this smart machine learning technology, we can surface insights about the past, so trends and patterns. And then ultimately our vision is to be able to kind of preempt and predict where these trends might be heading so that we can help communications professionals and others get ahead of those crises and issues faster and more efficiently.
So let's get into the sort of debate around AI, because, you know, playing devil's advocate, there are folks out there who think there is no real AI being implemented. They say it's basically machine learning. It's not true AI. And then, of course, AI can have different meanings. It can mean artificial intelligence, but also augmented intelligence. So talk to us a little bit about your perspective on those sort of topics.
No, absolutely. Great question. So I think firstly, it's important to state that, and I believe this fundamentally, that as practitioners of applied AI or applied machine learning, whatever you want to call it, is that we have a responsibility to level set the capabilities and potential of this technology. I think there is a general perception challenge every great technological innovation, in that we have a tendency to overestimate the short-term capabilities and typically underestimate long-term transformational capabilities or properties of that technology. I think what we've seen in the last year is a rapid acceleration of digital adoption, a seismic shift almost, and that's been largely driven through the pandemic that we've had to face, whether that's workplaces assisting with distributed teams, whether that's their healthcare and health services having to deliver a digital first approach. And I think the same is being said of the way machine learning and AI is being adopted and integrated into the enterprise. We just recently published a report that came out earlier this week, actually, called The State of Decision Making in 2021, and it backs it up. We surveyed over 1,000 C-suite executives in the US, and the finding is that 96% of business leaders and decision makers believe using AI will transform how decisions are made. Another relevant finding here was that 80% of leaders felt that they have too much data to weigh up when making decisions. So that is fundamentally where we believe machine learning can be really powerful. We don't believe in automation or artificial intelligence being upon us quite yet. We believe in what we describe as called augmented intelligence. What we believe is machine learning is going to be infinitely better than a human can at reading, millions and millions of documents per day in hundreds of different languages and extracting from that data trends and insights and changes in sentiment. No human could possibly cover all of that content on their own. What a human is great at, and a communications professional, as an example, intuition, strategic decision-making, understanding the action that needs to take place off the back of that data. So we see this symbiosis and this partnership, and I think the best communications professionals, the best agencies are very aware that they have to start adopting and integrating these technologies in how they work, so that they can both understand that, but then utilize it for its breadth and power.
So PR pros are not going to be replaced by robots then?
No, I don't think anytime soon, and I think perhaps not ever. But what I do think is absolutely critical, and what I do believe is that communications as a function is going through a revolution, and it needs to go through a transformation. It becomes far more data literate and far more quantitative in its approach. That is different from comms leaders looking at marketing and trying to become more like their peers and comparators in marketing. It's not about trying to look at necessarily pound attribution. I think the role of communicators is slightly different. It's about the measurement of trust, of reputation. It's about making strategic decisions or reputation-based decisions. Again, in our survey report, the research that we've just come out, over 85% of C-suite leaders said that they would make a reputation-based decision over one related to profit and margin. Fascinating insight. If you asked that same question 10 years ago, would you have got that same response? Probably not. So there is the C-suite saying that actually they want to make reputation-based decisions, and the chief communications officer, their responsibility is to advise the C-suite against that. But they can't take that seat at the C-suite table, at the board table, if they're not armed with the data and the quantitative measures to do so. And we believe at Signal, technologies like ours are fundamental in being able to do that effectively.
I think that's a really important point, because we've had this debate about the seat at the table forever, and now PR pros do have the seat at the table. But if you have the seat, you've got to deliver. You've got to be a proper business advisor and a strategic counselor, and you need all the data and tools like that to back up your case. So it's absolutely fundamental. And you're right. The last 12 months, I think every CEO, every C-suite has recognized that leadership and communication is one of the most, if not the most important things about what they do. So yeah, really good points.
And I think on that, just the final point I'll make is there has to be a mindset shift, because I think there's a general perception in the industry today that tools, traditionally called media monitoring tools, which Signal is part of that broader market, that they're a necessary evil. You know, we have this media monitoring tool and it's there to deliver us our clips in the morning and deliver us our coverage. And that's the extent to which we utilize these capabilities. And I think there has to be this realization that the technology can do so much more, and it can help these professionals answer fundamentally more strategic questions for their businesses. You know, what do we want our company to be famous for? What are the key drivers for trust for our business or our brand? What reputational threats and issues are emerging in my supply chain? How do we measure the impact of our work and relate the impact back to business performance metrics? And we've got countless examples helping global organizations now answer those sorts of sophisticated strategic questions. But I think there has to be a fundamental mindset shift from the profession around the way they view data and the way they view the tools enabling them to get to the insight in that data.
Let's broaden it out a bit. The comms tech market generally, because of the things you've been talking about, is really hot at the moment. It's a really interesting place. There's lots of interesting companies out there, but there's also lots of deals being done, mergers, acquisitions, partnerships. How do you see the market overall, and what's your sort of end game for Signal? You know, do you aspire to be acquired, or are you just at the moment in build mode?
Look, I think there is a distinct split in the market. What I would describe as some of the large incumbent organizations who have been around for a long time and offer an end-to-end solution, an integrated solution around what could be described as the PR workflow, but don't necessarily have the underlying technology to fundamentally help these professionals answer those more strategic and sophisticated questions. Then there is a new set of emerging competitors, challenger brands, if you want to call them that, who are driven much more by product and much more by technology. And I think that, there is a bit of a battleground going on, and the larger incumbents are looking at consolidation as their strategy to be able to continue being competitive, if you like, both economically and financially, as well as from a product perspective. But it's very, very difficult to turn the oil tanker around and revolutionize oneself from within. It's very, very difficult. And most acquisitions fail, as we know. Over 85% of acquisitions are set to fail by Harvard Business Review. The emerging companies don't yet have scale, but they have this fundamental technology that I think can help answer more sophisticated and strategic questions. We at Signal are just absolutely focused on product and technology. And we believe that by focusing on our core competency, the commercial success will come thereafter. So we're not interested in exit. We're not even necessarily interested in partnering with those legacy incumbents. We're interested in building the best possible technology and products for this market to help take them on this journey of transformation through the way data can be used. And I think what we're finding and where we get most excited is when we see our the best examples of our clients utilizing this technology to answer these truly sophisticated questions. So, when we see Deloitte using us to monitor and track reputational supply chain risk, taking an organization, mapping their supply chain and surfacing for them early warning signs where labor abuses might be occurring in their supply chain, that's an exciting use case for the technology. When we see one of the G7 governments using our technology and data to understand vaccine confidence and the interplay between 15 years of survey data, the completion of vaccine appointments, and media perception, and how that drives adoption of vaccine appointments, that's a fascinating use case. So they can pivot their communication strategy to land the best possible messages to deliver confidence in vaccines. Or when we see, a global financial services organization defining what trust means for them as an organization. And then we combine media and social perception data with internal employee survey data, with NPS data from their clients, and we can marry and correlate those things together. We start driving real insights that help assist business decision making.
Yeah, sometimes I think people are obsessed with the exit and they forget about the actual business, which is what will produce a good exit if such a thing can happen. Great to chat to you, David. We didn't have time to get into Manchester United, so we both are supporters. And if you can use AI to get us back onto the top of the Premier League and winning the Champions League, I will really be very grateful. But thanks.
I don't have AI yet to bring Alex Ferguson back, unfortunately.
Yeah, so, that's what it is, isn't it? Alex Intelligence. So, but yeah, it was great to chat to you, David, and continued good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Steve. All the best.